We will begin with, I see that David Sanders from Wolverhampton Public Access is recording. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? Okay. We will begin with roll call in alphabetical order. Bill Bontempi.
Here.
Cheryl Caruana. Here. Sean Kennedy.
Here.
Lisa Murray.
Here.
Rich Redeker. Mike Terabasi. And Michelle Pedro. Here. I would like to allow you to open the meeting.
I call the Hamlet Board of Selectmen meeting to order. All selectmen are present.
Thank you. If you please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin today's meeting, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent tragedy that has deeply affected the community. So in honor of those who have been impacted, I ask that we observe a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Michelle.
So before we run, we are going to begin with thank you very much for being here with us this evening in the Board of Selectmen. We will begin with item number 3, authorize the Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Operations, and HR to transfer funds, close FY24 books.
So in the past years, we've just taken a vote to this effect. This year, I decided just so that it stays fresh in my mind when I'm pulling things up to do a memo to formalize it. So this year, you have a memo.
Make a motion to bring everybody to the school committee vote to authorize the Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Operations, and Human Resources to make transfers necessary to close the district's finances for the 2024 school year.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion carries 5-2-0. Thank you. Okay. Next item. So this will be the discussion of the use of Thornton Burgess School.
Thank you very much for having us this evening. As stated in our letter, the purpose of the Board of Selectmen wanting to meet with the school committee is to get a definitive answer as to the region's plans for utilization of Thornton Burgess School. Thornton Burgess was built in 1967, and for over 50 years it served the community as a middle school. It's situated on nearly 30 acres of town-owned property and is a valuable building and a valuable piece of property that's being vastly underutilized and as such is in danger of deteriorating. In 2017, it was closed due to declining enrollment, and subsequently, as you know, there was litigation followed. In 2021, a settlement was reached, ending the litigation with one of the stipulations being a comprehensive strategic plan was to be developed. In September of 2022, the strategic plan was adopted by the school committee, and one of the components was to establish a planning committee to look at issues of building utilization and the regional agreement. The planning committee, along with the administration, worked for over a year holding numerous meetings, toured all the buildings, held discussions with staff members, administrators, toured other communities, talked to school leaders, conducted a region-wide survey, and consulted DESE along with the community outreach programs that the superintendent attended. Eventually offering options to the school committee to consider considerations that would alleviate overcrowding in some of the schools and underutilization in other schools. And I think we all know by overcrowding, we just don't mean a lot of kids in the classroom, we mean no library, some things being taught in closets and other things like that. In addition, the planning committee offered amendments to the regional agreement, which would have given the district the flexibility to make decisions to better serve future students in demographic change or other factors that arose. The school committee took no action on any of those and rejected all the options. So here we are. The region still has overcrowded schools and underutilized schools, and no flexibility to make needed changes if need be, which leads us to Thornton Burgess. The current lease runs out in 2035, and we have several options, I suppose. You can abandon the building and continue paying the lease and the maintenance and the other costs of it. you could move classrooms there, 5th and 6th grade, and at Thornton Burgess, and use Wilbraham Middle School for 7th and 8th grade, but that, of course, would be, you'd have to change the regional agreement. And I don't know if there's any stomach for anyone to do that. Locate the Innovative Pathways program at Thornton Burgess School. We could create a charter school there, or we could discontinue the lease and return the building to the town of Hampton. For our part, the town of Hampton is moving forward as landlords and has requested a consultant to complete a conditions assessment of Thornton Burgess to aid in the determination of potential future uses of the school if the region abandons the usage. The proposed building condition assessment will identify existing deficiencies and will prioritize those items that should be completed immediately, as well as over the next several years. The project team will assess the building's accessibility systems, including structural and building envelope, as well as the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems and interior finishes, as well as ADA accessibility in the septic system. I think we owe it to the taxpayers of Hampton and Wilbraham to have a plan to what to do with this building. I don't know if you have a plan or you even have a plan to make a plan, but that's why we're here tonight, to find out.
I'll jump in for 1 second just to take advantage of the soapbox opportunity here. Here's what we know. We have overcrowding in some schools. We have underutilization in other schools. We have disparities in curriculum throughout our schools. For example, listed 9 times in the program studies guide for 2023-2024, it's listed 9 times Wilbraham Middle School only. During our strategic planning meetings, we've heard overwhelming support for trades and real-world skills. And since then, I haven't seen much effort put into those topics. Yesterday, parents, including myself, received an email to pick related arts classes for middle schoolers. Of the choices of related arts, my son was only allowed to choose 3, of which it was stated every attempt would be made for him to receive at least 1 of the top 3. I also noticed key classes were missing that aid in development of young minds: home ec, shops, technical drawing, engineering, etc. The way I see it, related arts are being treated as electives. And how do we expect middle schoolers to know what they're electing to take, especially in the future when they've never been exposed to them in the first place? This is where I believe schools would benefit from an exploratory rotation, much like I had in middle school, where we were required to take all quote-unquote related arts, as they're called now. Also, side topic, why is ed related art and not mandatory? I mean, maybe that's a discussion for a later time, but let me put it this way. There are prerequisites in math. Illustrative math is required in grades 6 and 7, and then pre-algebra and algebra, which are part of the grade 8 programming. This all should be done with related arts. Without exposure at younger ages, students will never have the interest in the higher grade levels, which is what we heard during the budgetary roundtable meeting a few months back, that there was a lack of interest in the higher grades. Personally, it's my opinion, as well as other parents I've talked to, that our district could use TWB to fill these gaps. If the district used TWB as a district-wide middle school, grades 5 and 6, and then used Wilbraham Middle as a true junior high, grades 7 and 8, we could do many great things for our students while addressing disparities, space needs, building utilization district-wide. However, with that said, we in Hampton need some answers as to the plans by the district for the use of TWB now and into the future. It's been 3 years since we settled the lawsuit, and now we're just spinning our wheels. It's time we address head-on the hard topics and see a unified path forward. Thank you.
I guess I'll follow those 2 great statements. First off, thank you for having us here. Many times I've attended school committee meetings, and it's always been a welcoming atmosphere and very cooperative. I appreciate to see many friends there that have always worked for the interest of both towns. And they understand you are the regional school committee, and I think you've reflected that in everything you've done. Having said that, we are here because we are the stewards of the town, if you will. We're responsible for things that go on in Hampton. As such, as Don said, we have the infrastructure that's part of our overview. We have a building. We have a building for the town hall that I believe the last quote we had, Don, was in the $4 to $7 million range to bring up to speed, into compliance. We have another building that has not been utilized. You're in charge of that building. Your mandate is school, education for the region. We don't come in and tell you how to do that. We can offer suggestions. However, our responsibility to the town of Camden is to manage their money wisely. And I think from the board standpoint, all options need to be on the table for the problem we have in front of us. We've been talking about potentially moving the town hall to Thornton Burgess for years. And the thing that's stopping us, honestly, is the lease. And the fact that there seems to be, as Craig said, no good plan for what we're doing with the building. We move an office there, we move an office out. I think it's time for both boards, both committees, to figure out what we're going to do with it. To use a colloquial expression, not the one you're thinking of, it's time to fish or cut bait. We need to know if we can have that building back, or are you going to use it for the proper education purpose that's in the lease? And correct me if I'm wrong, Don, you leased the building for educational purposes. And my understanding is you just moved the last class out of it for next educational year. And the only purpose next year is for offices. And I'm not really sure if that's in compliance with the lease, because it's not an educational purpose. I think it's something we can work together. I think Don made up the fact that you're paying for it. You're maintaining it. Wouldn't you like to save that money and put that money towards educational purposes somewhere else? So, can we come up with a solution that, again, satisfies the needs of the taxpayers in Hamden? Thank you.
Oh,
you have something to say?
I was just going to respond to John when he said he was talking about the colloquial expression, because I was going to use the other one. So, you've got a town, the way I see it is that building's worth a heck of a lot more to you than it is to us. And, we have underutilized the building, there's no question about it. I want to say the last physical survey of that building was done 2013. I think that was Stanton.
No, I think 15.
Was it 15? It was part of the middle school task force. So anyways, Stanton. Yeah. So we had, and it was actually, so we got the report. The report on Wilbraham Middle School is actually less favorable than it was on TWB. TWB structurally is actually in excellent shape, according to Stanton's report. Unfortunately, Mr. Stanton, soon after issuing the report, we had scheduled a meeting to go over the findings of his report. Unfortunately, he ended up falling ill, and we were never able to elicit the information that we wanted out of him. But if I remember correctly, the biggest issues with it was there was limitations on the septic system because of the regulations on baffle size. The electrical panel was maxed out, so there was no way that you would be able to add additional service in the building. So you can imagine, like in your house, you have like a breaker panel, right? If you wanted to add another breaker panel, you just add another breaker panel. In order to do it at TWB, you would literally need to trench from the street and put a whole new service in to do it. But the building itself was in fine shape. Interestingly, the question that we had was, he had put the building, the planned operating capacity at 350, which seemed low because Wilbraham Middle School is roughly 99,000 square feet and had a planned operating capacity of 750. Whereas TWB has a footprint of 77,000 square feet and was half as much. I have a feeling that the WMS numbers were a little high, the TWB numbers were a little bit low. The highest number that I saw looking back in DESI data goes back to 2002, where I think it was 424 students in the building. So obviously there was capacity there. But looking at the structure of the building, I think that it's fine. I feel like one of the elves. I'm leaving these shores, right? But as I leave the school committee, I would tell you the same thing that I said back in 2017, which is, if you guys need the building, then I think that we can make an arrangement where you guys can take the building back. I think we have enough space in the existing 5 buildings that we have. Lord knows we have space in this building to be able to accommodate more students. If we did have a need for, you know, sort of an office or two, kind of as a, you know, sort of a lifeboat, if we were moving buildings or if we needed to house an office or two, maybe we could, you know, find a way to work with you on that. But I would not be at all inclined to deny your request. I would say we can give you back the building. We will terminate the lease and then go from there.
Part of the, as Don said, we gave a contract to Ty and Bond to review the structure. And part of their purview is to also look at it towards a municipal use, that is how would it fit into the current structure we have in the town of Hamden. That may also lead back to what you just said. Okay, you need 90% of the building, but there's these other 2 offices.
On the other hand, it seems like every week the board has met with another opportunity for
Occupancy
better
of the
management of
building.
the, you know,
Overcrowding.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, I think the other thing that it would do is it gives you guys the breathing room with your town. I mean, your town hall, there's no handicap accessibility. You guys are grandfathered in on that. I mean, the building is not in very good shape. So I think TWB is in way better shape. So it would give you guys the opportunity to move your town hall space into there, short term, long term. You know, whatever you decide to do with the building. From our perspective, I think the other thing it would do is it would put us, it would sort of give us less wiggle room, which is maybe something that we need. You know, we need some tighter guardrails to be able to streamline what it is that we're planning on doing in terms of reconfiguring the district as part of
But
this.
again, I've been speaking from the town hall standpoint. I know Craig has serious concerns about, again, proper spacing inside the district as a whole. Bill, you're correct. We looked at that as an option back in 2016, 2017, back when we had the same. Don went through 130 plus scenarios for the district. Back then, I believe we had double letters. We had scenarios for different things.
Yeah.
And we looked at the 5th and 6th over there, 7, 8, 1. The issue we had back then, as Don said, is the same. You need a regional agreement change.
Right. Right.
And is there an appetite for that? What's changed? It failed before. What's changed?
Well, unless you come up with a, I think, in sharing this conversation with everybody, but I mean, you have to come up with sort of an overall strategic plan that is attractive and exciting. Like we can't, you know, we don't just want to be rearranging the deck chairs and saying, and this is the argument that I've had from the very beginning about the elementary schools in Wolverhampton, is we're not really doing any substantive changes. All we're doing is just kind of moving buildings around. But at the end of the day, we still have 2 grades in every building, and kids from Wolverhampton are going to keep on changing locations. And it really does limit us because a building has a certain capacity. And so we have this building, which is well under capacity, probably 30%. You have Sewell Road, which functions a little bit below capacity, and then you have Stony Hill and Mile Street, which both function above capacity. So and I know Sean gets mad at me every time I talk about neighborhood schools, but I will say it because it gives you the breathing room to be able to move. So if you're able to draw 8th grade and maybe even eventually 7th grade into this building, now if you go back to neighborhood schools, you literally have the ability, the flexibility to be able to keep the populations in the buildings relatively stable so that you don't, if you got a bubble class one year and you put it in 2 grades, now all of a sudden you're way over capacity. And my kids have gone through the elementary schools in Wolverhampton. They've been to all 3 of them. I have 3 kids from all 3 schools, and I can tell you, I used to go in there to read. I used to go in there to work, to help out in the classrooms. It's tight. It's tight. So, you know, when those kids get out, you know, in between classes, I mean, you're literally, it's a body crush. So those are all things that I think need to be taken into consideration. But any regional agreement change, the only thing that I could see that would be a regional agreement change would be just, we either need to be all in and all out. I mean, you can't be half into a marriage and say, well, you know what, I got my foot in the door, but I'm still over here, and I'm still seeing this person on the side. No. If you're a regional school district, you're a regional school district, K-12. And that way, we need to be able to move some kids. You know, and the first year is always hard because people are like, well, you know, you get some people from South Wilbraham and you pull them into Green Meadows. It's like, no, I don't want my kids to go. But you have to understand it's all part of the same district. And we're asking the parents from Hamden, whose kids have gone to school in Hamden for the last 7 years, all of a sudden to say, okay, now you're going to Wilbraham. Right? So there's a little bit of that goes back and forth.
I mean, to be fair, that's already happening.
Right, no, but I'm saying the fair thing to do and the equitable thing to do as far as education in our district, number one, is to open up the district across town lines. And then the second thing to do is to normalize our mode of education. Because right now, kids in Hamden, they get to stay in the same building for 6 years.
Yeah, but I think, we talked before, and I think the best idea that came out of the middle school task force was the neighborhood school expanded up to 8th grade. And we're talking about that, if we could have gotten the, so to speak, the idea across, we have a south middle school and a north middle school. One's not Hampton, one's not Wilbraham. There's a southern and a northern. And the enrollment line for the southern middle school would have been Kingham Road. And everybody north of that one went to Wilbraham Middle, and everybody south of that went to Martin Burgess. Roughly equalizing the population, and then they all merged into Wilbraham. Into Minichog.
Yeah.
But that would have been, honestly, the easiest way to do it, because you would have normalized the population, if you will. You would have gotten the Martin Burgess population back up into the high 200s and brought the crowding down to Wilbraham Middle.
It would have normalized the class sizes at the middle school level, but it wouldn't have done anything to alleviate the crowding at the elementary school level in Wilbraham. And like I said before, the equity issue that I have, because you know, for years the entire lawsuit was based on the concept of equity. But if we look at equitable education in our two towns, like it is completely inequitable. I mean, you have a town that educates its students in the same building for 6 years, no transitions. Whereas in our school district, we are transitioning kids every 2 years.
I personally don't think it's our place to come in here and tell you how to do your job.
No.
However, from my own standpoint, we're concerned about, as Don said, a deteriorating asset that the town could utilize if we had the freedom to do it. And we're asking, is there a game plan going forward? It was unfortunate that after all the work you all did on the strategic plan, that it didn't go anywhere. And many, many hours went in. And again, it's like the middle school task force. Kick down the road, kick down the road. We have Martin Burgess.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to the people in Hamden. We have an asset that's worth millions of dollars and continues to be, and may look to be underutilized for the purposes of the town of Hamden. So we come to you and say, what is your plan? We'd like to partner with you for the betterment of the town of Hamden. We know you all do a great job for the educational end. You take suggestions from Craig, and Craig is a parent. Don and I are, my gosh, we remember school in the 1800s. We haven't got much to offer yet.
I don't even answer the phone when they call anymore.
For the donations. But Craig's got some great suggestions he's given you. Just, you know, that's the standpoint of, from the educational standpoint. I'm just coming to you from, you know, having been in the town hall for, in various capacities, 30 years. I've seen an incredible deterioration in the physical structure and the complaints from the townspeople in terms of access. Heck, as Don and I get older, we have a tough time getting down to our office.
I'm going to have the superintendent comment.
Thank you. I can summarize my responses to what I've heard so far with 3 P's and a V. The V is vocational. We have made significant investments in vocational education in trying to expand those opportunities for students. We more than doubled that. In fact, that was a little bit of a controversial move for us to make in some quarters. So I just want you to know that that desire for more vocational options for students has been heard, and we're trying to be responsive to that. My next P is, or my first P is related to that, which is one of the things you may have heard us talking about at school committee meetings lately is trying to adopt a pathway approach, which would involve changing how we look at guidance in the middle school, giving students exposure to career opportunities and trying to help them start to make not firm commitments, but tentative explorations of different fields. And so there's a lot that's going to be coming down the pipeway on that. In fact, Aaron and I just hit the send button on the grant this afternoon to begin a pathway approach. And I really would hope if we can get this started, if you can help us with advocacy for that, because a lot of things we tried to do last year kind of hit a brick wall. I hope that doesn't happen with this. Next is program. I did want to just make a clarification that we do still have even after we move that class that you're talking about, and you're right, we're talking about moving it, there still will be a program there for the first part of the year, and that's a program that we can't move to any other place due to some special circumstances that I can't get into. But I would say that by January, we would certainly be out of that educational space as far as I can see. And the last one is performance-based. I would just ask that as we sort of think about future uses of TWB, we think about performance-based, because I know that the Strings program thinks that cafeteria is one of the best places to do performances in Hamden. So, you know, not to make a firm commitment here, but could we have some conversations about how are we going to do performances in Hamden? How can we preserve that cultural asset as well as the other asset that the building represents?
John, I do have one question in regards to pathways. You mentioned middle school, more exposure. How would that plan work with the overcapacity now? How would you be able to offer more pathway programs for students to explore if there's no space for it?
So one of the things that we're hoping to do through our pathway program is be able to entice some families to take the option that we tried to put on the table last year, which is allowing some 8th graders to come to the high school. So the idea is if we can, this upcoming year, get 7th graders interested in a pathway and then give them the option of pursuing that at the high school, it would allow us to take some of the programming out of the middle school, address the overcrowding there, and give the students who are in the pathway access to this building, which we think provides some, frankly, better educational opportunities because the equipment is newer. There's nothing against the staff or anything, but we just have the capacity to do a few things in this building that are harder to do in other buildings.
Just to touch on some of those pathways, I mean, I'll use myself as an example. In 7th grade, I was doing architectural engineering and dropping loads on timber frames, stick houses to try to get them to crush. We had shop classes and home ec classes and cooking and stuff, and space for these programs within the middle school where I think they should stay, not transition to a high school because that's where the programming is. I think the accommodation needs to be made on the lower grade education to get them interested in there, stay within their class structure and not alter their schedule personally.
All right. So again, thank you for coming here, in your words, in a welcoming and cooperative atmosphere. We really appreciate it. I do want to say that if you do have questions about curriculum, we do have subcommittees that meet very often, and you're welcome to attend there as well and voice your concerns in a more broader, a place where you're supposed to bring it up. Right now, I thought today we were only supposed to be talking about what we're going to do with the TWB. I do agree with you where you say that, we've got to keep all of our options on the table. My inclination is to keep TWB until we have a plan that has been approved by both towns. Because right now we had a bunch of plans and it seems like we haven't really narrowed down which one we're going to use. We haven't rejected any. I think Don had said that the school committee's rejected all options. We're really trying, and I believe that the pathways is the one that's going to be the one that will unite both towns. John already brought up about what we're doing. We had a little bit of a hullabaloo with Wilbraham about the vocational, extending it to the 9th grade. So we are moving on that, and it's something that's definitely on the forefront of our minds. At the same time, and Bill, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, didn't we try to give this back to the town of Hampden, TWB? Didn't we offer in 2017 or was it 16, 17?
Yeah, it was right around the time, that the litigation began. And it was, you know, it was a tightly held belief at that time that, you know, I think a lot of discussions through the middle school task force, I mean, the preliminary discussion started in like 2012. This predates my time in the school committee. John, I know you were part of it. It ran up and through the time that I was elected on the committee in 2015. And there was, that was one of the things that we had talked about doing. It was part of the 5-year plan when Superintendent Ganem was here, is that it was going to be, we were going to close TWB, and that was one of the things that we wanted to do was to give it back to the town of Hampden if they wanted it,
Right.
so that they could use it. Because we knew that your town hall space was, you know, was a bit compromised, and that, you know, there was some discussions with folks saying, you know, yeah, the town of Hampden can use it for some other endeavors. So, but the litigation basically threw a wrench in all of that, and so that's
So we did try to bring it back to you at one time. We understand the litigation and everything. We moved past that. The last thing I would like to say about this at this point is I don't think the planning committee is finished yet. Yeah, the planning committee is still an active body, and I think we waited for the budget to go at the end of the year, and then I think hopefully we'll be meeting again and keep on going down until we find a solution that we think will work for both towns.
Sean, can I ask a question? Are you guys able to hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Wow, okay, that's awesome. I apologize for participating remotely, but I already had this trip planned. I'd love to hear a report, you know, like months ago when we had the public forum, 2 things that I think as a committee and the planning committee were pushing for were, 1, modifying the regional agreement to include all grades, and 2, moving the 8th grade to the high school. The public forum that we held to discuss that, both of those things seemed to be voiced to us as being very unpopular with at least the town residents that came and attended and participated in the forum. And so I know that there's been, I was just curious where the planning committee is in regards to, like, you know, are we going to be moving forward to modify the regional agreement to just include middle school? I haven't heard anything on this. I feel, you know, I'm sure the planning committee has been discussing and working, but, like, you know, and I have heard in terms of the innovations pathways as one way for some of the 8th grade to move, but, you know, I guess I wanted to bring this up, and I guess it's kind of relevant to Thornton Burgess, is that, you know, especially when we have the selectmen here, you know, I don't think we should not, I think we have to modify the regional agreement at least so it reflects what we're currently doing, because right now it doesn't, right? Right now we are currently regionalized for the middle school level, but that's only by voluntary participation. So I'd like to hear an update on to, you know, where the planning committee stands with that.
So the planning committee is still active. We've just paused due to timing, and it was we left it with the superintendent to explore and obtain additional information on the additional pathways, which he has done at our request. We will have a meeting in the future. There are a lot of other pressing events that did cause us and to give him time to be able to take care of that. So I think that the planning discussion might be good for a separate meeting, because I think we are, while I think it does pertain to what we're discussing, I think that we've sort of gotten off topic. And I understand that there's a lot of history here, and it's great for everyone to be updated, but regardless of what people were willing or offering in the past, I think that really doesn't matter today, because I think we have a different school committee, I think we have a different superintendent, we have different goals, and there's also different members of the select board. So I think it's really important to look at, have a cordial conversation about, what we think and how we plan to proceed. And regarding, so I will comment on any of the options that the planning committee presented that had TWB as an option were rejected. So we did reject the options that included TWB and any of our reconfiguration plans. So that was something that as a planning committee we did all collectively agree on. So I think maybe that is what you were referencing as far as rejecting options. Okay. So, and then also you had spoken that the last program will be leaving TWB as of January 1st. So what will the district be housing in that building? Or will it be completely empty?
As of January 1st, the only thing that we're likely to have there is some furniture, some files.
So there's no offices, we're not going to have student services there, we're not going to have the nurse, the district health leader.
Yeah, we are working on moving the staff out. Not all of the staff can leave until that final program closes, but we are working on moving staff out of there. So that at that point, there was a lot left there. There are desks there, there's closets full of things, and there would have to be
So if we
plans.
still have the keys, you won't even notice if we're back in there, right?
Correct.
So I think that's important for us to understand as well. So we are talking about planning, reconfiguring, reorganizing, and making modifications to the regional agreement. But we also need to understand, as of January 1, the transition program will not be housed there. We will not have any of our district leadership teams there, and it will be empty.
And you're paid for it.
I'd just like, excuse me, I'd just like some clarification. Seems to me that the chair just said that we can make modifications, and I've heard from two of you that if this doesn't go through, if we can't get this settled, we won't be able to make any modifications. How much flexibility do you have as selectmen to determine what you want for TWB? That's my first question.
We're bound by the lease. First thing, we're bound by the lease. That's our problem.
Just turn your mic on, please.
Can we as selectmen make a decision to take the Thornton British back?
That's what I'm asking. What's the
Would
parameters of
we have to
your...
go to a town? Would we have to go to a town meeting? No, I don't believe we would. The selectmen have that authority to take. It's the tons of
Dissolve. We'd have to dissolve.
Well, we have to dissolve the lease. We have to dissolve the lease. But the lease isn't voted on by the town meeting. But I'd also just like to say, with me, there's never history, there's only future. And I understand the history of the thing, but I don't want it to impede what the future is. And oftentimes we get locked into history. It's kind of like, Israel and Palestine, they've been at it for 5,000 years. Has it changed anything? No. So
I would hope it's not that bad.
Well, I'm just giving you an example. History is fine, but it's always about the future. And, what's the best for the town and what's the best for the regional educational system.
And to Don's point about the future, I wasn't here for a lot of that history. So fresh faces, fresh ideas.
Absolutely.
So one of the things to keep in mind as well is there is an hourglass that turns upside down the minute we turn this building back over to you. So there is a 5-year window in which if a municipal building is not used as an educational facility after 5 years, then you will need to do a full upgrade of the building. It will trigger every single code that the Massachusetts legislature can throw at you, which is a lot. It's basically, it would be an unattainable goal. So, it's just...
to reopen it as a school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, the change is just in terms of like...
When did that hourglass start?
January 1, yeah.
Whether we have the building or
Yes, right, but I'm saying after 5 years, the renovations that you would need to do, just in terms of the seismic requirements to reinforce the corners of the building, you better off just tearing it down. So it's, it's something that we need to keep in mind. I'm still totally in favor of you guys taking the building. I think that it creates a more narrow lane for the strategic planning committee to work with in terms of finding solutions for what we're going to do in managing our student populations over the next few years. But I would tell you that I think you guys have a more urgent use for the building than we do.
I know the wheels of government work slow, but I would hope in 5 years from now we would have a plan of what we were doing in the district.
So I will tell you this, Craig. This was the 5-year plan 6 years ago. All right, everything that we're talking about right now, we talked about in 2018. So that's why I say 5 years doesn't seem like a long time, but you're right. Government doesn't move slow, it moves glacially. And so, we measure our success sometimes over the millennia.
By the way, I think Cheryl might be right, by the way.
At the beginning, what they said, it's time to fish or cut bait, and that's where we are.
Tough decisions.
I'm not sure, but if you look on the revised, the amended 2015 agreement, section...
Regional agreement?
Oh, there's a page number?
Are you looking at the lease or the agreement?
Page number, there is no page number.
The lease or the agreement?
It says, it's on the top
Lease or
after
regional agreement, Sean?
7.
Sean?
Oh, sorry.
The lease or the
Yeah.
agreement?
No, on the regional agreement, it does say that we should, would this be an amendment of us giving this back to you? Because the schools are listed in the regional agreements and stuff like that, and it might actually require a vote. I think we should just have maybe attorneys look at it or something like that. I wouldn't want to give it back and then violate our own agreement.
The list isn't up to date anyhow, we don't have Stony Hill.
Well, we don't have Memorial in here either. We have Memorial listed in this agreement.
But didn't we do
So
something?
Memorial's actually still in here, so it's,
Oh, okay.
that was part of the changes. So when the attorneys went through everything, all of those changes were looked at and things were crossed off, but because we didn't implement any of those changes, we didn't go to town vote, that is why this
Right,
does not reflect
that's
those changes.
precedent. Gotcha. Okay. I just saw that and I just wanted to bring it up.
A question now that we're talking about the strategic agreement again. I know that proposed changes were sent to the state for review and stuff. Is there a time window on that in which that is expired and then we have to be sending stuff to the state to review again?
I don't want to get too range too far.
Right, I would say that, to my knowledge, there haven't been significant changes from regulation since we got that opinion. However, whenever we make a change, it has to go back to the state for another review. So whenever it's done, it'll have a final legal review before the commissioner approves it.
Again, I don't want to go back to it, but I think Bill might have said it before, Michelle. We came here to inquire about the status of our purchase. We don't want to get too far off topic because that wasn't what was on the agenda. And we have the same concerns when we have meetings as well. We're not here to do your planning for you. You guys do a good job of it. Maybe I did tonight, but you do a good job. We bring forth to you, we need to know what's happening with the building. We have a large asset. We could use it. If you have a good plan to use it, as Craig said, he has another suggestion, which I will provide maybe an upgrade to education, then that should be implemented. But right now, we think it's, as of January 1st, if the current plan is going forward, we're going to have a study back from Time Bond that's going to give the selectmen information about the status of the building and its applicability for municipal use going forward. We would have a decision to make if there's an upgrade cost, do we bring that to town meeting in the next year? And we're going to balance that against it's $4 million to upgrade the town hall minimum or X number of dollars to make Thornton Burgess town hall ready. Conversely, if you have a good plan for using it that upgrades the educational model in the district, bring that forward. And it was originally built for educational purposes. But the concern is that as of January 1st, it's not going to be used that way. Bill brings up a good point. It's going to be like Memorial. Then all of a sudden you worry about, oh, 5 years expired, now the upgrade cost is bad. That's a concern too.
My question is, are you all three unified that you want it back for a town hall, or it seems that it's two want the town hall and one is looking for maybe us to use it for more educational?
I want a pathway forward. We have great municipal use for that building if the district doesn't want it. If the district needs it, I think it's valuable to.
I just want to make sure you're all on the same page.
I think it's valuable to whoever has the building, whether it's the town of Hampton or the school district. There's value either way. And I don't think there's a great value on either side of the aisle there. I just think it's a valuable asset that's being underutilized, whoever needs it.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a motion that we begin the process of dissolving the lease between the town of Hampden and the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District.
We don't have a vote on the agenda, so it was just for discussion. Yeah.
Right.
But however, we can certainly have that. But it was more of just in the event that
It would be modifying any of it, you're still going to lease 3 months. So
Correct,
that's-
correct.
yeah.
Yes. No, just the lease between the school district and the town of Hampden for TWB.
It's the same lease.
That one was done.
They're both on the same.
Or TWB. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even if you did take TWB out of it, it's still $1 for just the other school. Okay, just want to be clear about that.
You couldn't give us a price back, even though we're giving you the school back.
One thing that I would suggest is, that could be done without a vote, is if you wanted to give us some direction to work possibly with the town administrator or someone else who you might want to designate on a plan for taking care of all the logistics that would be involved. As I mentioned, it's not, what do they call it, broom sweep cleaned, because there are lots of papers, books, et cetera, things that would have to be gotten rid of. And we would just need to know who to partner with to work on that.
I think the board would be in favor of them reaching out to Brian to investigate what needs to be done.
Microphone, sorry.
I think it would be proper for the board to be in favor of the school contacting Brian Down or the town administrator to look at what needs to be done for any changes that were to be brought back to the board. Correct?
So I want to make sure that we heard from our entire board. So is everyone in agreement with that? It's not an actual vote, but just again, give it the superintendent direction. Yes. Sean?
Yeah, I still think that until we have a plan that has been approved by both towns, we shouldn't be making any drastic moves. That's just my opinion, because we never thought of the pathways thing before, and the pathways came up. What if another option comes up and both towns love it and it does involve the TWB? So I'm just saying it's a little premature. I understand the town's Hampton's desire, and I would love nothing more than to give them that building back. But I think really until we have a plan that everyone's approved, until we know where we're going, then do it. It kind of seems to me to be, all right, here, take that back, and then maybe it'll narrow the options that we have in the future, I guess. But I don't know. That's just where I'm leaning. That's my inclination.
I just want to remind you what Dr. Bontempi said, that on January 1st, the clock starts ticking. So if we start fooling around and dragging it out, 5 years goes by pretty fast.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is, when we look at year end. I mean, what happens if Ty and Bond comes back with, they say no, no possibility for municipal use, and then so I think there's still some obstacles in the road. I would say as expeditiously as you can, have them come out and do that assessment. I think it'd be very important. I think the general flavor from the committee is if you need the building, you have it. I know Sean's, I do respect Sean's opinion in terms of working on plans, but progress sometimes takes sort of different pathways than what you think. And in this case, I mean, you guys are kind of stuck. So it's I think that you have a better use for it right now than we do.
Well, I don't think doing the assessment of the building structure takes away from potential educational use. We should know what it's like. It's a building for town owns. We're quite aware of the fact that we've been blessed that the roof is held up. Shoot, I think my dad signed a contract for the roof back 26, 30 years ago.
You wouldn't really say that, jinx yourself.
Well, we're fortunate, I think the people that the district has that maintains the structures do an incredible job. And it's well past the, so to speak, certified life, but it's in good shape. But an expense like that would be on the town, it's our asset. The parking lot could use some upgrade. Things like that we need to be aware of. You're right, the study we got back in 2015, 2016, said the bones of the building were good.
So the bones of the building were great.
Great, but that was 9 years ago. So all of our bones change over 9 years. So it'd be good to know what the current status is.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
I did want to comment, you know, I think I have to say I'm kind of in agreement with Sean on this, that I have reservations about making a big change without us having a plan going forward. If the plan going forward is we're basically going to continue what we're doing, it 100% makes sense that, you know, the building should be returned to Hampden if Hampden wants the building, because it's not going to be utilized. And that might end up being the plan going forward, right? Because one of the limitations on the reorganization plans is that, you know, I mean, I think that there might be other things that can be done, but they're just not going to be financially, you know, feasible ideas. So, you know, I guess I kind of agree with Sean that I kind of feel like we should be deciding what we're doing. You know, and once again, it might be that we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and maybe some of the 8th graders are going to move to the high school with the innovations pathway. None of that impacts the fact that there's not planned use for Thornton Burgess in the near future. So, you know, I mean, I guess I'm a little on the fence, but while I agree with Sean, out of respect to the town of Hampden, we're not going to be using the building. We should turn it over. We should turn it over to them. And, you know, but I feel like we've been in the planning reorganization phase for a long time. And I think to both towns, I think we need to, I mean, you know, one of the questions that I seem to feel that they're asking here is, what are you guys doing? And I think it's not off base. We kind of need to figure out what we're doing and then stick to it.
It sounds to me that, you know, right now we're in the exploratory phase of what the next step would look like as far as looking into how the lease would be amended if we were to return the building. And the other piece that we also need to consider as a school committee is if the district were to keep the building, the costs that we would incur, and also if we were to bring programming back, the cost that we would incur bringing students and programming back. We already are in a very tight budget, and we struggle every year, and every year gets a little bit more challenging, so those are some other considerations that we also want to consider. But again, I think right now just allowing the superintendent and Aaron to be in conversation with the town administrator to explore their options and the next steps, as well as while Time Bond is working on assessing the school. I think that because between now and January 1st, I think all of that would likely be done.
It is a partnership, as the lease says. It's a letting of the structures for educational purposes. Say you go back and you do find an educational purpose to the building, you're going to be in receipt of a nice engineering study on the condition of the building. That we pay for it because we care about the building, we care about any future students that will go into it. So it is a partnership. We want to make sure that we're getting the best out of the partnership for the students and for the taxpayers in Hamlet.
As part of the open discussion, and I don't know if this is just something that's popped into my head, but what about the cost of this? So say we decide to give it back and break the lease and you have it back, but like, you know, lawyers' fees, moving, stuff like that, would that be bared by the district or is that shared, or just a question? I'm just wondering. It just popped in my head, I don't know.
I think it's shared. Which I'm glad you brought that up, because it brings me to another topic, which Mr. Flynn didn't want me to bring up.
No, you plowed the road, you could walk down.
The The lease agreement says that the region will pay for all maintenance and repair of the buildings. And Camden's been paying $15,000, but it's budgeting and spending about $15,000 a year for maintenance repair of the buildings. So I don't want my $139,000 back from the last 6-7 years, but I'd like a portion of the $9,900 for this year back.
I don't make a habit of turning away money though, Don.
I know.
Okay, just to be clear, that's not my job.
I understand.
I offer you $15, I don't expect you to say no.
It's what the lease says, and there's a cap. Once it gets to $30,000, then it becomes a capital expense, and it goes through the whole different process. But I just wanted to bring that up, so it's 80% of 9,900 is roughly 72 something, just in case you get a bill. You're not getting next year.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have anything else to add? Is there anything else from anyone?
So the plan is, Aaron's gonna talk to Brian, and we'll start exploring at least what would need to be done if we're gonna do the assessment, and we'll explore what needs to be done if we're gonna change things. Right?
And thank you guys very much for calling this meeting. We still have public comment, but just wanted to tell you thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you guys for the years, and I really do appreciate your candor and your forthrightness with this issue.
With that, so we do have the need for you to have public comment. Is anyone here interested in making public comment? Okay.
Well, look at you, Dave.
And with that also, so before we go, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Bill Von Tempe for his dedicated service over the last 9 years. Your commitment and contributions have greatly benefited our school community, and we are immensely grateful for your hard work and your dedication. So we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and we also have this plaque that was made for you.
Oh, why, thank you very much.
So thank you.
John, I told you I didn't get a retirement party, but I did.
I called for a speech, but I've heard enough of going.
That is really nice. Guys, thank you very, very much for thinking of me. And this will probably be my last meeting, so I wish you guys all the best. I'm not moving anywhere, so you guys are still sitting around town. Motion to adjourn?
Thanks for the warning.
Second.
Thanks for the warning.
So we'll do a roll call. Bill?
Aye.
Cheryl? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Lisa? Aye. Rich? I know Rich is actually online. I know we can't hear him. Mike?
Yeah.
And myself. We're at 6:29. Oh, perfect. Okay, well, thank you. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Well, you're not going to see that. Don't worry, I'm going to stop it.